Welcome back to another episode of Be Our Guest here on Musical Theater Radio. I am your host, as always, Jean-Paul Yovanov. Many musicals are based on real people or real events, like Diana or 1776. But the musical Blackout is based on an event I actually experienced and lived through. In August of 2003, there was a huge blackout that hit much of the northeast of North America. And for me, I had just finished a job interview and was about to get on the subway, and the power went out. Thank goodness I didn't. So I started walking home. Who would have thought that I would still be without power days later? To talk about their musical Blackout and their upcoming feature at the NAMT Festival of New Musicals in October of 2022, let's welcome Stephen Gallagher and Anton Lipovetsky. Anton, Steve,
hi.
Welcome.
Hi there.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much for having us. Thank you.
No problem. And like I said, it's so weird to experience. Like you see 1776 and all these musicals, but yeah, I lived through it. And as I'm probably, did you guys live through it before we get into everything else? Anton, because you're from Vancouver, aren't you?
Yeah, I live on the West Coast, so I missed it.
You're lucky.
But, yeah, sounds stressful.
And Stephen, were you in the heart of there?
I did. Yeah, I did experience the whole thing. I was doing a job. I was at work and everything went crazy and we were all walking home in 20 minutes.
Exactly. Wait, how far did you have to walk home?
It was only, I lived in Cabbagetown in Toronto, so it wasn't a crazy walk. I was working downtown, but it was interesting to see what happened, on the walk home, the stress that was initially there, and then all of a sudden it's sort of when people sort of discovered that it wasn't going to be so crazy, the relaxed and party mood that took over the city. So that was kind of fun.
Awesome. So let's, before we get into the Blackout, I always like to get to know our guests first for our listeners. So I'm going to ask for your 30-second bio. So I would like to know who each of you in 30 seconds. Anton, who are you in 30 seconds?
That's a big question for 30 seconds. I'm an actor and a musician, composer, writer. I live in Vancouver. Studied acting at Stu 58 and got into writing through performing. And now I would say my main line of work is composing for original musicals. And I compose and I write lyrics and collaborate with playwrights like Stephen and bring things up from scratch or adapt shows. And I'm just about to complete my residency at Musical Stage Company in Toronto.
Nice.
Where I've been a composer for 3 years and that's where we produced Blackout for the first time along with Canadian Stage.
Very cool. Stephen, who are you in 30 seconds?
I am a writer, a director, and an actor, and I just moved to Hamilton, Ontario, bought a house in Hamilton. I lived in New York for many, many years when I was in my 20s, and I moved back to Toronto in the early 90s where I became an actor. And sort of like Anton, I became a writer through my acting, and I've been writing plays for about just over almost 20 years now. And I got into musicals a couple of years ago, and that's me in a nutshell.
Very cool. Very cool. As a side note, has nothing to do with anything. Which do you think would take longer as a commute? Anton from Vancouver to Toronto, or you, Stephen, from Hamilton to Toronto during rush hour?
Actually, in rush hour, I take the train, so it's only an hour.
Because I'm thinking 5 hours, maybe both. I'm not sure with the flight and driving, but awesome. So, Anton, were you always into musical theater growing up, or is that something you just?
I wasn't always into musical theater. I was always into music. I played in rock bands. That's how I got my start writing music. And when I was in high school, I was in a rock band, influenced by alternative rock, like Nirvana, Radiohead, and then studied acting, and then found a way to sort of marry the two passions that I had. And although my parents were into musical theater, like when I was a kid, my mom showed me Little Shop of Horrors. That's my first musical I remember seeing, and she had it on VHS, and I would watch it over and over.
Nice.
Yeah.
Stephen, what about yourself?
Well, I think my dad was involved in community theater when I was a kid, and the first thing I ever remember seeing when I was about 9 was 8 or 9 was him playing Fagin and Oliver in 1973. And I was a big fan of that. And he did community theater. And when I decided to become an actor, like I went to McGill and I have a degree in psychology. When I decided to move to New York to go to acting school, my dad was the most supportive person of all. So I went to school for acting specifically, and realized when I was there that they kept telling me that I had a singing voice. So that's when I started auditioning for musicals. And when I moved back to Canada, sort of my career for a long time was mostly in musical theater as a performer. Like I was in Urinetown at Kent Stage and a bunch of other stuff. And that was sort of how I made my living. And yeah, so, but now I sort of expanded from that and write musicals, and I don't sing as much anymore.
So my question is, how did these two parallel lines of your lives converge? Who wants to take that?
Mitchell Marcus. Mitchell Marcus, who runs musical stage company. Used to run the musical stage company. He's no longer there, but he was the artistic director, and they were looking to create this evening of musicals based on the archives of the Toronto Globe and Mail, and they were matching book writers with composer lyricists. And he wanted to work with both of us. Mitchell had wanted us to be both involved in the project. And so from afar, he suggested to both of us in 2018, he said, do you want to meet with Anton Lipovetsky? He's in town, maybe go for a cup of coffee with him or something like that, and see if you guys might jive. And so we met and we got along right away. And so that was in the November of 2018 when we met. So 4 years ago.
Wow.
Mhm.
Nice. And what was that, Anton, like meeting Stephen for the first time? Let's pretend he's not listening. So
I think we hit it off right away, right from the jump. And we were assigned this project of writing a short musical, and we were just sending messages back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, which became one of the main ways in which we work, because we live on opposite sides of the country, but also because of COVID. That's how we ended up creating a process together, was emails, text, phone calls, Zoom. And Stephen is the kind of artist who's always available, always thinking about the show, giving all of himself, and it really inspired me, and we hit it off right away.
very cool.
I often say that we were uniquely prepared to write in the pandemic, because we had written most of the first so-called Cygnus for musical stage above the Toronto Globe and Mail, where it started. It was called Reprint, and we wrote most of that from opposite sides of the country. We only met twice before we got into rehearsals. We had a couple of works and sessions, but most of the stuff was by. I often talk about like our texts and our emails and voice messages to each other are just like epic.
I guess so. This was all before anybody discovered Zoom, right?
Yeah, we didn't know what Zoom was. We were just, it was message.
Yeah.
It was some Facebook, some FaceTiming, a lot of text messages, and like even like full on like voice memos of like Anton singing a phrase or playing a phrase, or me saying, "What do you think this sounds like?" Somebody would say, and we'd send a lot of that stuff back and forth. So
I bet when Zoom hit, you just went, it just opened up, and you went, "Oh, this is so much easier."
yeah.
So let's talk about Blackout. Tell us the synopsis of it and a little bit about it.
Well, Blackout, it's inspired by true events. There was a huge blackout that happened that took out the eastern seaboard for at least 2 days on August 14th, 2003. And we wrote a short musical that takes place on that night, where two strangers meet and their lives change forever. And we wanted to expand it, and instead of going the more traditional route of like taking that story and making it longer, we turned it into a triptych, so 3 short musicals, an anthology of short musicals that all take place on the night of the blackout, in consecutive order. Like the first one is as the sun is setting, the next one is in the middle of the night, and then the third one is as the sun's coming up. And the stories are loosely interconnected, but they're very different. And the hope is that it gives you the sense that there were millions of stories that night that you could have been, part of.
Yeah. So Stephen, as a book writer, how did you decide what type of stories? Because you probably heard hundreds and hundreds of different things that happen.
Well, the first story we actually did was called Cygnus, and that's actually the third piece of the puzzle. We wrote that one first, though, and we were actually inspired by a picture from the Toronto Globe and Mail of a couple sitting on the slope at Riverdale Park, overlooking the Toronto skyline as the sun was setting. And we knew that the lights were not on, and as soon as the sun set, the entire city was going to be dark. And we were really intrigued by what happens when the lights go out. And that's how we sort of thought we set the actual first piece in Riverdale Park in that area. And then the other ones we were thinking about, we're really interested in connection, and Anton and I really are both there's a lot of ourselves in all three of the stories. Like, we both have siblings. The first one's about siblings. The second one is about somebody dealing with an illness that they don't want to talk about, which I have dealt with, and Anton, and we've talked about that. And the other one has to do with a lot of mental health issues which everybody deals with. And Anton and I have really gone deep in on sharing our own personal stories with each other and trying to figure out how to bring those into each of our three stories. And each of the three stories is named after a Greek myth. So they're Gemini, Pandora, and Cygnus. And so they each they don't retell the Greek myth, but they sort of have an impetus. Each one has sort of a little section, they're not based on what you're saying. They've got a flavor of what that initial they're inspired by. That's right. Yeah. So we were just intrigued by like personal stories, and we just got really personal into our own lives and thought, well, how can we bring our own stories, to stage with other people who weren't us, sort of thing.
Very cool. So tell us a little bit about the production history leading up to, heading down to New York in a couple of months.
Well, our first short presentation of it was actually at the Globe and Mail Center in Toronto, and it was a really, really cool venue because we did it against full-size windows, and you could see the skyline behind the actors. And for our show, it was perfect. And then where did it go from there? Then we expanded it. We were working towards a workshop production in I suppose at first 2020 and then 2021. Is that what happened?
Yeah, we had like 6 or 7 workshops in 2020, all over Zoom. So we had developing each of the other 2 stories. So Gemini and Pandora, we worked on those stories, and we had actors on Zoom from all across the country workshopping those 2 shows with us. And then we had a final workshop in 2020, and then we sort of put it all together to have the production in Hyde Park in 2021. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. That's very cool. A lot of people don't. Tell us a little bit about that theater in Hyde Park and what that was like, because Hyde Park's theater is outdoors. and tell us a little bit about what that was like.
Well, initially we were supposed to have an indoor production in 2021 inside at Berkeley Street, but that wasn't going to work out because nothing was open. And so they proposed this as an outdoor venue. And I've actually done 2 Shakespeare in Hyde Parks in the 2000. I did Drew in Hyde Park twice, and it's an incredible venue to perform in. Like, the audiences are just bonkers and wild. But I think we only had 2 rain out dates for Blackout, but if you get rained out, you can't do the show. But it's a beautiful space to be in. And it was ideal for this because, people could sit far apart, they could be outside. So it was sort of ideal to bring back theater in a way that wasn't possible inside. So it was ideal for our show. And it's actually started kind of a thing now. They're doing a partnership now. Like, they had another new musical in Hyde Park this summer. Fatuma wrote a show called Dixon Road, which premiered on Can Stage, and was won a bunch of Doras as well. So they've sort of continued. We started this tradition of new musicals that they're hopefully going to continue, which is great. So a happy accident turns into something interesting from there.
I think having it out there would be perfect, because in the Hyde Park, there's no lights, there's nothing there, and you're going to get actual blackouts when
yeah, by the time Cygnus happened. So it did the show starts at dusk, so as the show goes on, the lighting sort of takes over, and you are in the dark, and you see the trees around you, and it's very, very dark. So for the final show, which they're looking at the stars, was quite beautiful because they are in absolute darkness around, but they're lit by the city lights and the stage lights only. It was really beautiful.
How could it be more perfect? That's awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
I really wish I'd been able to get out to see that. Life happens. So tell us, about the process of getting it to New York for the NAMT Festival, what that is, and how you went about doing that.
We submitted, NAMT collects submissions from all around the world. I think this year they had about 500. And what it is, the National Alliance Musical Theater is, it's an American organization, but they have international members, and it's a collection of individuals and organizations that produce musical theater. And this festival is where they're going to showcase original stuff that they might want to produce, if that makes sense. So this annual festival of new musicals, which we're participating in, has 8 different new musicals that are going to be showcased. A 45-minute excerpt of each going to be showcased to an audience of, say, 800 industry people who are in the market for that sort of thing. And it's a really cool opportunity for us. Like, New York is kind of like the mecca of musical theater, and we're pretty thrilled to be a part of it. Pretty honored.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're muted there.
So yeah, they cast the show in New York as well. So we just finished our casting today. It's been a long process because you're dealing with folks that are usually in Broadway shows or between gigs, and so we have to make sure that their schedules fit. But we finally finished casting our show. Fingers crossed. I'm sure they always say somebody's going to drop out in the last couple of weeks because they get something different. But it's been kind of amazing, that process. We work with an amazing casting director in New York, and our director has been fantastic. And the whole process has been very supportive. So basically, they set deadlines for you from when you find out you're in May. Mm-hmm. They set a series of deadlines for you where you have to have a 45-minute final draft sent to the artistic director so they can approve it. You have to have like all these little things going along the way, and they set up meet and greets for Anton and me as well, Anton and I as well, so we can meet producers from across the country as well. So it's a very big conference that ends up those last 2 days with people coming to see the shows. Yeah. Well, you've been there, but it's very exciting to be part of it because the opportunity is not just for the show, but it's for writing teams as well to see what else is happening for you. So,
I'm incredibly excited. The funny thing is, I haven't been there live yet. I've been the first 2 I've been to were the pandemic ones. So the energy in that room is going to be incredible. Like
this is the first time. I was there in 2017, and I saw when my friends Akiva and Colleen and Akiva did Prom Queen, which is now called The Louder We Get. They did that there, and that was wonderful. But they haven't had a live conference since 2019. So everybody's very, very excited, I think, to get back. And COVID protocols are very, very strict right now, just for like, they aren't that strict in New York in general, but for this festival, they are very strict because of, there's 60 actors all in other shows. So
they can't afford to suddenly have to replace someone. Like, that would be chaotic.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, I'm pumped and ready to go see this stuff live. And yeah, the energy in that room, because like you said, from across the country, the world are coming to see your show, which is incredible for you guys. Congratulations.
No pressure, Jean-Paul.
It's the world.
Well, I'm going to be one of the lesser pressured ones watching because I don't have a theater company to put on your shows, but I will be there for support. But yeah, it's going to be an incredible experience for yourselves and for everybody there.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about any of the casting or even just the directing and how the process, how it works now that you have it cast? And because you guys are going up in a month or something like that. So
yeah, the casting, we probably don't want to jinx anything because we don't know who's going to do it. But our director is a wonderful person named Asher Lloyd Ehrenberg, and they've been instrumental in like really being a great voice for us as writers. They're very supportive. They've worked really hard to help us with a 45-minute cut that we all feel happy with. That's one of their jobs, is to make sure that we feel happy with the version we're presenting. And we've also been working with NAMT does this great thing where they give you 2 sort of representatives. They're not really mentors, but they're sort of associates that help you. So we have Michael Rubinoff, who is instrumental in Come From Away, and then Pamela Adams, who is at the Atlantic Theater Company, is general manager of the Atlantic Theater Company in New York, and they've both been instrumental in really helping us guide, answering questions for us, and making sure that we have the best possible 45-minute cut that we can present on the days that we present. So that's been, because that's the big thing. You want to make sure that your musical is showcased in a way that people are intrigued to see more. That's the hard thing.
And then on the music side, Lily Ling, who's from Canada, but moved to the States and has been a conductor and musical director of Hamilton on many of the tours. And then most recently, she made her debut conducting actually on Broadway. She's musical directing, and that's very exciting. She's great.
I've known Lily for since 2009 when I did a New Brain for musical stage. She was Wayne Gwillim's assistant way back then, and she's a force of nature, and she is unbelievable. Like, we both love her so much, and it's good to know that somebody in our team who we know we already have a bit of a shorthand with. I think especially important for Anton for the music side of it, so he's not trying to she knows him, she knows his music. She's going to want to get the people singing it right, which is amazing.
I wonder, did they put you together with Canadians on purpose, or did it just happen to be that way?
No, I mean,
did you? Okay.
We both, we have some, we get to request folks too, so which has been great.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, you got a good team there. I know Michael for sure, and especially working with somebody you already know, that'll help.
It's just, it helps with shorthand. I mean, it's just like, because Anton and I are so, we're not from New York, so we want to make sure that we, everybody's been really great about making sure that we are happy and comfortable with the people we're working with, which is so wonderful.
Yeah.
Very cool. So when do you guys get down there to start working on it and in person?
Soon.
October 9 we leave, and we start rehearsal the 12th.
Yeah.
And then the presentations on our 20 and 21st.
21st, yeah.
21st, and then we come back on the 22nd. So it's really,
so it's spread out over 2 weeks. The rehearsals will be 4-hour sessions over 2 weeks, and
wow.
Yeah,
that'll be exciting. I'm so excited for the two of you, and I'm so excited to go see it. Like I said, I missed it, so I wanted to see it for sure. So where do you see this going? Like, what kind of theaters do you think this would work best in? For all those producers out there going, give a little pitch.
yeah.
Well, I think the show is really accessible. I think it has a lot of, everybody can relate to the stories that we're telling, I think. And I feel that everybody, especially coming out of the pandemic, everybody is looking for connection again. And that's what our show is about. Our show is about meeting people, or just trying to make connections with people, because we've been so isolated and lonely for a long time. And coming out of this, meeting people in person, your social skills are a bit off sometimes, right? And so it's been great to explore what that was like last year. People were really into that last year when we were coming out of it. But I still think that in the greater lens of seeing it through what we've just been through, people really respond to the fact that people just want to connect on a human level with other folks. And that's what our show is about, just connecting and being with other people.
I think for me, it's an intimate show. I think it's not about spectacle. I don't see it in a gigantic, 2,000 seat theater. It's more about human beings and relationships, and I picture the experience of seeing it as an intimate one, where you're close and you're with the actors and you're connecting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. For sure. As much as you want to get into a 2,000 seat theater, I think you're right. This type of show is in a smaller, intimate, which there's more of. Let's be honest. There's more theaters that have smaller numbers of seats, so more opportunity. Anton, Stephen, thank you so much. Usually I ask at this point, how can people go see the show? But they can't really go see this.
Not yet.
Not yet, but they will. Hopefully they will.
Afterwards, for sure. I'm hoping, so many producers will go check out the show and talk to you afterwards, and the best of everything. I look forward to seeing it as a full production somewhere, because I missed it the first time. So
thanks.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thanks so much.
No, it's been my pleasure. Is there anything else any words of wisdom you'd want to leave us with about, the show and what it represents?
Well, I personally, what it represents to me is new beginnings, because Anton and I are almost a generation apart, and so for me, it's been a really great way to understand that it's never too late to create. It's never too late to try something new. It's never too late to expand your horizons, and we've learned a lot of that through the pandemic as well. It's never too late to try to be your best self and to try to create art, no matter where you think you are in your life. There's never a better time to do it than now. And Anton has really helped me, has taught me that. Is one of the great lessons I've learned from him, is like, there's never, we were thrown together in a great way. We happened to get along great, but when you really find a collaborator that you love working with, you want to keep making the best stuff that you can. And I've really realized that there's no age limit to that kind of stuff. As long as you're working with the right people, you can be pushed in different ways you never thought were possible before. And that I've learned that from this show.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, talk that, Anton.
Well, I think this is very much in the same world of what Stephen said. But in terms of the impact of the show, I really do hope, in a small way, it's hopeful. It leaves people hopeful. Everything that I work on, I hope it's adding to people's hope and not to their cynicism or pessimism. But particularly with this show, without giving too much away, like, I hope that when people see the show, that they leave feeling a little bit more hopeful. As pat and as trite as that can be, I
great.
truly wish that.
Wonderful. Congratulations to you both, and with everything, and I hope it's hugely successful in the future.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jean-Paul. Thank you so much.
No problem. All right. We were just speaking with Anton Lipovetsky and Stephen Gallagher, the creators of the musical Blackout. Tune in next week, as we'll be speaking with another guest or guests about their life, love, and passion that is musical theater. I am your host, as always, Jean-Paul Jovanov. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.